Hello, story lovers, and welcome back to my channel, Tales with Tasha. I am Tasha, and I am a storyteller. I love stories, and I hope you will enjoy mine as much as I do. Do you have plans for New Year? Any resolutions you want to challenge yourself with? This week, my stories have all been inspired by Out with the Old, and today is no different. We have a story of self-doubt and self-discovery with lots of wonderful magic. Don't forget to let me know your favourite genres / themes in the comments so I can make sure to have you covered in the New Year planning. Please subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the exciting stories. And also, smash that like button if you enjoy the tale. Thank you, lovelies. This story is suitable for all viewers. With that being said, make sure you're sitting comfortably and let's jump right on in. The New and the Known, A Magical Rebirth by Natasha Duncan Drake. May looked at herself in the mirror as her attendant Issa artfully wove feathers into her long dark hair in an ornate style. Only a year ago, she had been an ordinary girl in an ordinary village. Then, on New Year's Day, she had gone out early to pick her mother a snow bloom from beside the river. As she had bent over to reach the finest flower on the bank, she had glanced at the slowly flowing water. That was when she had first seen them. The blue and green iridescent eyes stared back at her now, as they had done then. Gone were her usual dark irises, and in their place were the ones that marked her as one of a kind. The 5 kingdoms had known for several years that the High Priestess was not as strong as she used to be. The bards had been on the lookout for her replacement for many seasons, but back then May never could have guessed it would have anything to do with her. There were no rules to where the next High Priestess would come from. No right of birth or lineage, and May still didn't understand why the goddess had chosen her. As soon as her mother had seen her eyes, she had fainted, and, when she had come round, not stopped crying as her father tried to be stoic and comfort his wife. They had all known what it meant. May had given her mother the almost forgotten bloom, kissed her parents goodbye, and left the house where she had been born. She had only taken the clothes on her back and walked to the headman's house. A message had been sent, and the bards had come to collect May and take her to the goddess's temple. She had spent the last year with the High Priestess, learning from the woman's wisdom and preparing for the day to come. It was New Year once again, and the time of change was upon them. Even as Issa finished her hair, May could only see the country girl beneath all the finery. The High Priestess was the goddess's vessel on earth. She had powers May could barely comprehend. Even with all the long talks they had had, the lessons in etiquette, reading, writing, and law, May did not feel as if she understood even a fraction of what she would need. Lara was 102 years old, sustained as a young woman for 80 of those years by the goddess's power, when finally the signs of age had begun to show. Lara was calm and wise and loving and strong. So very strong. May did not see how she could live up to that, no matter how Lara assured her that once she had felt the same. May was afraid. "You look perfect," Issa said, smiling at her in the mirror. "Thank you," May replied. She didn't think she looked perfect, but Issa had done a fantastic job with what she had to work with. Lara was a tall, willowy woman, whereas May was short and, even though she always worked hard, what the boys in her village had called dumpy. When she had referred to herself as such once, Lara had corrected her, calling her curvy instead, and pointing out that human fashions meant nothing to the goddess. What was important was the spirit on the inside. As she stood, brushing down the front of her long white dress, she did her best to believe. But it was hard. She did not feel special, or chosen, or any of the other things people called her now. She still felt like the girl from the provincial village of farmers and weavers. Her father had taught her to read and write when she was small, but she had expanded her vocabulary and learned calligraphy under Lara's tutelage. Her mother had taught her how to run a household, but Lara had educated her on how to advise kings in running their kingdoms. She had shown talent as a weaver and been apprenticed to Anne, one of the best in their village, but at the temple she had learned about politics and how to weave people. Everything was so much bigger now, but Mei still felt small. Mei, you look lovely. She turned at the sound of Lara's voice. The High Priestess had just entered the room, and Mei felt instantly inadequate. They were dressed the same, as protocol demanded, but Lara looked so much more regal and elegant. Her hair may have been white now, and the crow's feet showing around her eyes and her mouth, but she was still a strong, beautiful, and powerful woman. You look lovelier, Mei said. Thank you, Lara said with her usual gentle smile, but I think you are selling yourself short again. Mei ducked her head, not willing to agree, but not wanting to disagree either. Are you ready, my child? Lara asked her, and she looked up into eyes identical to her own. They glittered with power that would soon be Miei's. She stood there for a moment, silent and contemplative, as the weight of the question settled on her shoulders. She had never questioned the will of the goddess, never tried to run from the role for which she had been selected. Yet, as she looked into those eyes, she realized the choice had always been there. Her mind flashed back to that morning at the river again, and the moment she had glanced into the water. The instant froze in her mind between one breath and the next, and she saw it in perfect clarity. All it would have taken was one blink, one denial, and it would have been over, the reflection written off as a trick of the light. I chose my destiny? She had to check. Lara reached out and took her hand. You did. Mei took a deep breath and looked once more into Lara's calm and knowing gaze. Yes, she said. I am ready. Then it is time, Lara replied. Mei nodded, and hand in hand they walked out of the room. Balls of light hovered at intervals along the ceiling of the corridors outside, illuminating the white stone of the floor and walls, even as the windows revealed darkness with the barest touch of grey on the horizon. Soon it would be dawn, and the new year would officially begin, bringing with it a new age. Mei was still afraid, but with Lara's hand firmly in her own, she walked into the light with a confident stride. No one followed them as they headed for the stairs of the great tower. Once, 86 years ago, Lara had made this walk in Miei's position. She could barely imagine what the temple must have been like all that time ago. The oldest person in Mei's village had only been 69, and the way they had talked, they had made it sound like a different world only a few decades previously. How much had Lara seen in her lifetime, here at the center of everything for the 5 kingdoms? How much had changed? How much would Mei see in her time? It boggled her mind. She had always felt There was something she needed to see beyond the edges of her village, beyond the confines of her district, but she had never guessed. For a year she had been living with the knowledge that she would be the new High Priestess, but only now did it begin to sink in. Lara would pass the mantle to her, and with it the power and responsibility. As they set foot on the stairs, hands still joined, Mei stopped. "Am I good enough?" she asked when Lara looked at her. "Child," Lara said, using her other hand to cup Mei's cheek, "you have no idea how perfect you are." "But have I learned enough? Will I be what the goddess needs?" She could not help it as her doubts bubbled up. "Mei," Lara said kindly but firmly, "you are all that you need to be. The moment you acquiesced to the goddess's invitation, you became everything required. The last year was about helping you to adjust and understand what is to come. It was not about changing you. The goddess has seen your soul and your being, and it pleased her. That is why she chose you." Lara kissed her on the forehead before turning back to the stairs. They climbed together as Mei contemplated Lara's words. Her stomach still fluttered, and her fingers trembled as she placed them on the handrail, but they soothed her nonetheless. Each window they passed showed the sky on the horizon lightening a little more, and Mei's thighs began to burn, but up they went. The great tower was the tallest tower in all of the 5 kingdoms as it stood, a monument to the goddess for all to see. It never weathered, and it never needed repair, and nobody remembered who had built it anymore. It was the place from which the High Priestess and, through her, the goddess addressed her people. When they stepped out onto the roof, the air was cold, but completely still, and the sky was grey, tinged with pinks and oranges. Mei's heart beat hard in her chest as she let Lara lead her across the open space to the far side, where a square platform jutted out over the edge of the tower. There were 4 steps up to it, to take them over the parapet that surrounded the rest of the roof. "Come," Lara said, leading her up the steps one by one. Mei had only been up here once before, when Lara had introduced her to the people. It seemed like a lifetime ago. This time, Lara did not let her hover at the back of the platform either. Below, so far below, Mei felt lightheaded. People from all over the 5 kingdoms were gathered inside the main temple square and all around the edges of the temple grounds. Torches and lanterns lit the murky pre-dawn dimness like jewels in a dark bed. Royalty and the rich had the closest positions, but there were common folk rubbing shoulders with the gentry. The temple welcomed all for this, rich or poor, high or low-born. None were turned away. "My people," Lara spoke at her natural level, and her voice carried like thunder on the ripples of her magic. The power tickled Mei's skin as a roar of greeting went up from those below. "Today, with the dawn, comes a new age," Lara continued. "Today, I gratefully surrender the power which was granted to me with grace. I love you, my people, and I always will. May the grace of the goddess touch you all today and forever." Lara squeezed her hand and stepped towards the edge of the platform with Mei only a step behind. The roar of sound from below was amazing. Thousands of voices, all lifted in unison. It filled Mei with amazement as she felt the energy of the crowd. Her fear of the future was swamped by the magnificence of the present, and she gripped Lara's hand tightly. A gentle breeze ruffled the material of her dress, and the cold kissed her skin and she felt alive. For the first time in days, Mei smiled. She turned her head to look at Lara, and the other woman smiled back, before once again facing outwards. The sky was lightening quickly now, and they both watched as dawn broke. When Lara squeezed her hand again, she knew it was time. "I come to you," she said, the words jumping to her lips without hesitation. As one, they stepped off the edge of the platform. Mei's dress flattened to her skin, and several feathers were ripped from her hair, but she felt exhilaration rather than pure fear. It was like stabs of lightning through her body, lighting her up from within. She yelled into the freezing air, not from terror, but because she simply could not stay silent. Time slowed down, as if every breath was minutes, not moments, and she stared at Lara. The other woman still smiled at her, and Lara's eyes glittered. Mei let herself be swallowed by those eyes, as the wind whipped at their bodies, so their spirits came together. Mei had never known anything like it, not even in the deep meditation sessions Lara had taught her. It felt like the universe was opening as their souls touched. For the briefest of moments, she saw Lara for all that she was. The knowledge, the wisdom, the strength, it was all there. And so was the doubt, the confusion, and the fear. Mei saw Lara as the human being she was, and then something else touched her. This was no human with human frailty and doubt. This was something else. All Mei could feel was love and power, and she opened herself to it without question. She blinked once as reality remade itself around her, and magic and energy engulfed all that she was, physical and metaphysical. Lara was gone. Physical body dissolved back into the fabric of existence, and soul moved to a different plane. Mei was left with only her memory, but it was all that she needed. As the unfathomable present settled in the back of her mind, Mei knew what she had to do. Magic tingled down her nerves as she took control of her body in a way she never could have understood before. As she plummeted down, her form shimmered and changed, large, beautiful wings taking the place of clumsy human arms, catching the air currents from below and slowing her fall. Long tail feathers twisted and turned, bringing her now slight body under control. And with a cry, she launched herself upwards in the form of the snowbird. Cheers and shouts greeted her as she flew out and across the crowd, dropping tiny ice crystals as she did, and showering those below. In each one was a blessing, and she soared over her people. A new year, a new age, a new beginning. I hope you have a wonderful new year and all your plans come to fruition. Please smash that like button if you enjoyed my story, and it would make me very happy if you would subscribe. It's totally free, and if you click the bell icon too, YouTube will let you know when I publish new vids, so you will never miss out on a story. Thank you so much. There is an ebook version of the story on Amazon and all other major retailers if you would like a copy to keep. There is a link in the description, or scan the QR code on screen now. See you next week. As always, we'll have 4 YouTube Shorts on Monday to Thursday and another longer video on Friday. Happy New Year!